All right.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. So like I said, we've had what was today? Monday, right? So for the past few days, we've been uploading a lot of new content, a lot of interviews, a couple of like dates and couple tags and stuff like that. But today, we're gonna finish off Monday by doing another interview, and it's gonna be a fun one. And so yeah, like I said, she and I have been chatting a little bit before the show, but I would like for all of you to meet Ola, and she is here because she would like to tell us a little bit more about her I guess quote unquote, like, unique or kind of different kind of relationship that she has with her boyfriend. Ola is also African American, and her boyfriend is Asian. And so yeah, so that's obviously what we do here on this channel. We celebrate AMBW and those kinds of relationships. And yeah, so like I said, I've been talking enough, and I'll just let her introduce herself. So here she is.
Hi, my name is Ola. I'm from San Jose, California, and I'm in an AMBW relationship.
Right, perfect, perfect. And guys, like I said, first of all, thank you if you're watching the channel, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. So obviously, this interview is not about me. So we are going to be talking to her about her relationship with her boyfriend. So Ola, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with your boyfriend and what exactly makes it unique or different in your opinion?
Um, I think it's a fact that we're long distance and like he's from another country that's not even like he's from Europe. Um, and I'm from here, and we didn't expect like this to happen, um, especially this long. Um, and the fact that I think that's the main interesting thing, and the fact that we've managed to stay long distance for 4 years, from Europe to America, and we've like grown a lot. It's just like amazing. And um, yeah, it's just like a very, very interesting situation.
Yeah, okay. Not for real. And you know what? That's definitely awesome because, like it definitely fits the narrative of this channel and what we're about here on this channel. So, on this channel, like I said before, we're all about everything AMBW related. And like I was describing to you before, we definitely want to, talk to everyone in terms of, like we want to talk to people like with like, different personality, different walks of life, what I mean, different backgrounds, all that stuff. Because love and relationships and all this stuff, it varies from person to person. Um, and especially when it comes to interracial relationships, it's definitely no exception there. And like I said, yeah, we're definitely very happy to have you on the channel with us tonight. Um, so tell us, how long have you? Or I guess you don't know. Let's go ask you a question. How did you guys meet exactly?
So I was working at a huge social media company, and I was doing something that I didn't really like. And I was moved to like a department to work on certain content, like sort of like moderation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really into that. That's not what I wanted to be doing at the time. And thankfully, I got out of it. But when I got moved there, I was also like a student. I was going to school full time, and my life was just like really tense. Like I went to work and I went to school. I tried dating. I wasn't really picky about who I dated. However, I was kind of like like I was open because most of my friends were like Asian. I felt like I was drawn to like Asian culture in general because I felt like I saw some similarities in my own because my family is Nigerian. Um, so I saw some like mostly like the way that we're raised. I felt like I could get along with a lot of like my friends, whether they were like Filipino or Vietnamese or Chinese or whatever. Like I just happened to get along with them a lot more, even though I have like, like some white people in my family and, Black people in my family. I ended up like gravitating towards like this group of people. So I was like open, but and I wasn't like a preference. Like I didn't have to like date one. But my friend, she was actually like, German and she was white. And she was, it's funny, we met because I was making ramen or in the like kitchen. And the way that I made it, I made a post because sometimes we make posts about fun stuff that we're doing. And because of what I posted, she decided to become my friend. Um, and she was like so enthralled with whatever the heck I did with that ramen that day. And she was like really curious about my dating life. And I was like, oh yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I don't date these people. Oh, I can't date someone who's younger than me. I was like, talking about my restrictive upbringing because I was kind of raised to like not have sex before marriage. I was raised to not date before, like always like restrictive stuff. So it was always like a taboo and it was like confusing how to kind of go by. So I feel like I was late in terms of the times when my people my age are like dating and like going through relationships. I just wasn't. I
Mm,
wasn't going through any of that. So I just kind of, I feel like I did have a lot of people like hit on me, but I felt like it's always like older guys, like people promising to give me things. And it was always so confusing because I was always just looking for someone who would just like meet me in the middle, like a friend. But I felt like the guys I meet, like if they're like my age, like, when I dated like my crushes or whatever, um, it was just like, I don't know, there was just like no purpose behind it. We didn't really have like a goal or anything. And I always just like never had a real relationship. I just went out like on one date and then I always ended up becoming friends or just, not seeing each other again.
mm,
Um, so, and then it would be like older guys being like, promising to do this and do that. And it was always so confusing because then I was like, is this a good thing? I guess I should like date, I think it's a good thing to date older people. I thought if I date people who are like 10 years older, they'll have their shit together. And then I guess my life would be settled and I don't have to worry about anything. But that was a lie. They did not have their shit together. And luckily, I didn't really go into any like deep situations with these people either. I just realized that, yeah, they weren't any much better. So it was just, I feel like dating was just like confusing. And then I met her and we became friends. We used to work out together and she kept telling me about her roommate. And she's like, oh yeah, my roommate's like really cool. You guys should meet each other. I think he'll really like you. And then she was like over there, like playing matchmaker, telling her roommate who was also from Germany. She was like, yeah, he's from Germany. And then like, you're going to meet him. He's going to be cool. And then I think somehow she found out that I was like open to like dating like Asian people because I didn't really care. She was like, what? Like for her, like that was like something that she would never do. So I think she saw it as like a joke. I don't even know. Um,
mm,
yeah, it was really funny. But in his case, he's European.
mm,
He does have some like Asian, he's half Asian, but he's not like he is like aware of like his culture, but he's not like super like into it, I guess, like most of the friends that I have. Like
mm,
most of my friends are pretty cultured, like they're straight up, from Vietnam or like they speak their language, and that's kind of why I mostly got along with them. Um, so but for him he's like kind of removed from it. He's like more German or European than he is like Asian, like compared to like an American who's like Asian too. Like it's just different. Like he completely just blended in. um so um so it was kind of like this thing, but for her she couldn't get past like physical look. She's like, oh, if they look like this then they're this. um so I was like, whatever, I don't care. But he turned out to be a really nice guy. He was like good looking. He was teaching me how to do like Python. And he was surprisingly open to the weird stuff that I was suggesting. So, and we thought we were going to be friends, honestly. We were supposed to just hang out with my friend and him. And I ended up hanging out with him more than my friend, which she got mad at, which is hilarious. Um, we ended up, I took him, I think on the first time we hung out, I didn't call it a date. We went to like the beach and we danced. And he wasn't much of a dancer, but I was a dancer. So I always take everybody I know. Like if I see you, I'll like, let's go dancing. Like that's just what I do. And from there, one thing led to the other. And next thing I know, we were dating, and he had to leave. He had to go back to Europe. It was like, I think we were only together for 3 to 4 months. Yeah, 3 months. And at the same time, I was also dating other people, but not seriously. So I thought it would be a conscious decision to like try to go on dating apps and meet people. So I met people like different ethnicities. Like I met a Black guy, I met like a Brazilian guy, and I thought that he would be my friend and I would date these other people. Uh, but then it was so hard because I ended up spending so much time with him. He was never pushy. He was never like he never like hit on me like in an obvious way like the other guys that I was like going on dates with. And I just found myself not wanting to continue to go out with these other people. I had maybe gone out with them once or twice, and then just because we were hanging out like friends, I found myself like hanging out with him like over and over again. And next thing, like it was so it was so funny. It was kind of cute. So I remember him coming to my house to visit, and my dad was yelling because I think I never he never saw like a guy at my house before.
Mm.
Uh, so he was yelling, and that was like my boyfriend's first experience.
Hmm. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed was when he was there, he was like really quiet and he didn't like freak out or anything. But it's like he was used to it, or he like was familiar with the situation.
Hmm.
And then he got like I think my mom had soup and I gave him some pepper soup, which is like a Nigerian dish, and he had some of it and he didn't like reject it or anything. He just ate it up. He just ate it up, which was like okay, okay, I guess. And he like is the kind of person who mostly doesn't eat spicy food. He only eats like German or Italian dishes, like Käsespätzle, like all of these other foods that are like typical European dishes. And he probably likes dumplings or something. So that was like really funny. So another fun thing about the day that we met, he went to the beach and he got me. He baked cookies. He baked these German cookies and brought them to the beach.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I feel like in my mind, I was like, sounds like a cool guy. Like, and I was also used to hanging out with like, guys platonically. Like whether I was dancer guys, I was used to experiencing a lot of guys who were like players or like people who had asked me out. So at some point, like I was kind of immune to um like romantic gestures. I don't know how do you explain it? Like I feel like when you're around people and they're always like flirty, now you don't know if someone's being flirty like or not,
Right.
because you're just like, yeah, they're just being themselves. Like, so I was kind of like, I was like, yeah, this is totally a friend situation. And it was not a friend situation for him.
Hmm.
But I low-key in my heart, I did feel something a little bit. I just wasn't sure because I didn't know what to like how to pinpoint it. I didn't know how to put it, but I was like, oh, I think he's cute. He seems like a cool person.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of shy to talk about the other details, but yeah, it was like he was like my first, and I was his first too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was and that's it being that I've had like I feel like for us women, we tend to like a lot of we tend to get pushed into awkward situations.
Mhm.
Like even if girls sound like they're thirsty or anything, they're very I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but they're less likely to like act on it. But I feel like growing up since I was in high school, it was always guys who always try to get like in my pants in a way.
Mhm.
Um, and it was low-key creepy, but it was just like a thing that you just had to expect. Um, and so I never had like a romantic like encounter. It was always guys trying to like feel their way through, and then me like rejecting them, or being like almost like wooed into situations that I did not want to be in.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. So it was really sad because like you don't really have that opportunity to like explore for yourself. It's like you kind of get taken like advantage, or like coaxed, like yeah, you get coaxed to like do like maybe kiss someone or do things that you didn't want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I think also like meeting someone who wasn't like pushy was really surprising and like nice. It was also a turn on. um yeah. So um yeah, so that's like that's the long story short. Yeah, we ended up, he ended up coming back a few times to like work here. He came for my graduation. We ended up staying um, here. Like it was really tough staying in touch. We thought that it was going to be over the first time he left, but we surprisingly stayed in touch the entire time. And I was very intentional in asking what he wanted, which he wasn't sure of, because it was also like a new experience for him. So I was raised to kind of, I feel like we're raised to like expect to like get married and do things, but I feel like guys are not raised to expect those things. So that led to like a lot of, like I feel like unsurety, because I feel like for him, he's like, oh, I'm young, I'm gonna be young forever, I'm gonna get married when I'm 40, I don't know, some ridiculous age like that. And I'm over here like, dude, at 25 I need to like be married, and by the time, but by the way, I met him at that time too. I was already like 25. um so um it was really really weird because I'm over here like I grew up in like, oh my god, by the time I'm 25 I'm gonna be married, I'm gonna have kids, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then I happen to meet this person who doesn't even know what the heck like this like relationship is. So yeah, there's a lot of like growing. Like at first there's a lot of inconsistencies, but then I was just really straightforward about like what I wanted, and he slowly kind of came around. um because I was ready to like dip, which was kind of sad, not in like a happy way that I was ready to like dip. It's just like it was the easier situation to like dip. um yeah, but we chose the hard life, so here we are.
All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah. Those pretty. Yeah. It was pretty eye opening. Um. So like you said, like he's still in over there in Europe.
Yes.
Okay. And so how do you guys primarily keep in touch? You just like text or like Instagram, or how does that work out?
Yeah, so yeah, he's not like much of a social media person, and most people in Europe, especially in Germany, they're not like very mostly private. So
Okay.
that's an interesting thing. But we talk all day. We spend when it's his time to wake up, he'll sometimes call me before I go to bed or fall asleep, or I might call him before I fall asleep. And we'll say like our good morning or good night, which is basically the opposite of each other. And then we'll, thanks to, the current Bud Light situation, we can work from home. So we can now kind of like work together. So when he's ending his day, I'm sort of starting my day, and sometimes we'll like just keep the camera on and hang out. So being on camera, I've sort of like have to do that and sort of pretend that he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's only hard. It's very hard when um, I go out and I realize, oh, there's like people outside, and there's like people doing stuff outside, and then it starts to like hit, like the loneliness and just like the realization. Um, I've gotten all kinds of people tell me stuff like outside of the fact of like, just being an interracial couple walking down the street. like people always comment either like positive comments or wow, like really,
Mhm.
like people ask me, are you really dating an Asian person? Like, like some guys feel offended by it, like uh, some some people I've talked to in the past, like a Hispanic guy, an African guy, a Black guy has like scoffed at the situation. Um, some people think it's really cute. Some people are just like supportive of it, but kind of like mixed reactions. And people are just like, oh, like, hey, like, what are you wasting your time? Come with me, and everything will be fine. So it's a lot of just like fighting temptations. Um, mm, Sorry, I feel like I missed a question. I kind of
No,
went.
no, it's okay. I actually thought of a different question, and so you just brought up the fact that like some people might not necessarily approve of your relationship, and you said a couple things that I caught my attention. So, you said that people like just don't understand or don't approve, and you said that one of them was Hispanic.
Yeah. Uh,
Wow.
a mixture, like, it's just like people, I think it's just personal interest because um maybe like people that I talked to in the past and they thought that we would have potential, and then they find out that I'm in this like relationship, and they're like kind of a little butthurt, or just like think that I'm lying, or um like they just think that I'm just like making it up so I don't like date them or something like that.
Oh, so these were like guys who were interested in you, like that
I,
that that
Now I
like.
think so. I didn't. It's funny because they never like explicitly said. I mean, one of them did, but it's just like very interesting ways that they approach it. It's like I meet someone, maybe like a friend of a friend, and he happens to be like either like African or whatever. Mostly like, and it happened to me twice with like two guys who are Black. They're like, oh, and then they find out, oh, that I'm in this relationship, and they're like scoff at it. They're like, oh, really? Oh, they'll be like, I think the first thing is because it's long distance. The second thing is because he's like of like Asian descent. So they like start to think like, oh, like how dare you? They try to like compare themselves and be like, oh yeah, like I'm better. Like I don't know, it's like they see it like a challenge or something,
Mhm.
but like, oh, like I'll be better, blah blah blah, things like that. Um,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
So like yeah, okay, no, yeah, you don't have to say exactly what, but it's I think I sort of get a picture here.
Yeah, but they never like say it like explicitly. I don't know if it's because of the long distance situation or because of his ethnicity,
Mm,
which is so weird because it's weird, but it's kind of interesting because it's one of those things that you think people won't say. You think it's a
mhm,
myth that they wouldn't say, but then they do say it in a
mm,
way, like in a subtle way. Um,
right. Y-
um,
You know what I mean? Sorry to interrupt you, but it just I just want to interject really quick. So I do get what you're saying about people, like being subtle, but at the same time, like not kind of finding that balance between being more overt and being subtle to the point where they can get their point across.
yeah,
And I mean, like I said, it's for me, I can kind of relate because I've also been in a few relationships, and a couple of them were with non-Asian women. And and I mean, yeah, just also just in general, even when I'm out with women, if I'm like out on a date or hanging out with someone, you know what I mean? And most of the time it's not an Asian girl. It's like I do get hate from other people for some reason. And so I for me personally, I don't understand why people even care. You know what I mean? Like why do people give a shit?
I personally, let me, from my perspective, like when I see like an Asian guy like dating like a white person or a Black person or an Indian person, I'm always like clapping. I'm always happy in a way because I feel like that's not something that I saw a lot of.
Mhm,
Um, like I have like a friend that's like my neighbor, that his father was Taiwanese and his mother was Australian. Um, And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I feel like it's weird that I would say that, like, like like if someone says, oh, wow, like they're like, wow, like, compared to like if his mom was like Asian and his father was like, white, then I'll be like, yeah, you know what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
so that I think I get like people being like, oh, okay, that's like different. And there's also like the negative aspect of like, oh, like, wow, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and also I just want to note that there was one time where I went out with a it was the opposite actually. So I actually one time it didn't go anywhere, but I went on a date with this what was it? She was like half Caucasian, half Latina or something like that. She's a mix, and we went out to Starbucks, and then there was this Asian girl, who I didn't know at all, but I saw her from across the room, and I saw her because she was staring at me directly, and
Mm.
she was giving me the death stare. I mean, she
Oh, wow.
literally, and also my date saw it too. Like she pointed it out, and I looked at her, and then I tried to look away, and then I looked back to see if she was still. Yeah, she was still looking, and she was even more pissed off. And I didn't say anything. I kind of chuckled about it and kind of looked away, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that was like the only time that I'd actually gotten quote unquote hate from an Asian girl, I
Yeah,
guess.
kind of shocking because especially if it's in California, like Asian women tend to date whoever they want.
Yes, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
and they always like gravitate towards like whiter guys.
Yeah.
It's kind of like weird if they would behave that, but again, you never know. People like we get a lot of that, and there's always this. Excuse me, get water and
Okay,
let
yeah,
you.
for sure.
Like I get it. Like Black women are tired of Black men dating like not Black women. I was
Hmm.
seeing that in the news, even though maybe in reality, that's probably not the case.
Right.
Probably 90% Black people dating each other.
Hmm.
I feel like people who are the same are gonna always be like attracted to each other. That's why most people from the same communities tend to stick together.
Hmm.
It's the natural, thing. However, living in an integrated society and like a place where you can kind of, I don't know what to call it, as a melting pot or salad. I don't know. A melting pot with some salad in it. I don't know. Um, or I don't know. I think it's just like it makes sense that you kind of drop a little bit of your like affinity to your specific group and be open to mixing. But I do feel like yeah, people come from different backgrounds and they might maybe have seen that in their family there's like a trend and they don't really like that.
Hmm.
So I try to respect people's views, but I want to rationalize like, where is that coming from? Is it coming from hate? Is it just like your personal experience of you being butthurt by someone who didn't date you or something? And then you're like mad. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, dating is I mean, everybody does it at some point, and so I think it's kind of weird, and also just not really. It oversteps the boundaries when you try to comment on someone else's relationship, whether you're black or Asian or white or brown, it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's 2021 now, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody,
Well,
yeah.
what would you say about family? Because I have to deal with that too. I went to get my hair done by this like Asian woman who's like married to like a white guy again,
Mhm.
all of them. And she was saying that, oh yeah, that the like, in Chinese societies that the Chinese women are more the dominant ones and they don't want their like son to like marry someone else.
Um, wow. I mean, honestly, that's a really big double standard. Because like we were discussing earlier, like yeah, Asians nowadays they tend to date whoever they want to date. So I mean, I have heard of the more traditional Asian families. They tend to stay within their own race, but even then, if you go to Asia, I mean, like obviously we're in America, but if you travel overseas to Asia,
Mhm.
to China or Korea or Japan or Taiwan or wherever, Vietnam, you'll see that obviously the majority of them are Asian, and that the majority of them are also dating each other. But however, in certain parts of Asia, in a lot of parts of Asia, Asians will date foreigners too, meaning they will date, non-Asian people. Um, so I mean, yeah, in terms of family, like especially when it comes to like Asian family, my family, they don't really care who I date, as long as it's someone, someone decent who treats you well. And the last girl that I dated was Korean American. I'm not Korean, I'm Chinese, but they, I mean, again, they didn't care. Like they liked my, they liked her. We actually got engaged, and but obviously it did not work out, but we did get engaged before that. But yeah, during then they liked her because she was a nice person. She wasn't really rude or anything like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, and my sister, who's also Asian, has really only dated Asian guys. But then I have a lot of cousins, a lot of female cousins who date mostly white guys. So it really just depends, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a lot of like step siblings that are half white, that one of them is like dating one of them's dating is married to a white woman, and the other is with a black woman, but he's mixed, so I guess they kind of split halfway. And then I realized like my cousin and other family members, I just saw a trend of like dating or marrying like white women, which was kind of like, like it's like we're cool with it, but at the same time, your family kind of like what's going on here, kind of situation.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
So yeah, I just have a quick question. So this is something, and please don't don't take us the wrong way, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So, and I don't, I'm not trying to generalize or anything like that either, but
Mhm.
I was just wondering, like, so since it is, I guess for me personally, like living here in Los Angeles, SoCal, it's actually quite often that you see black men with white women and black women with white men, or black women with Asian men, brown men, doesn't matter, whatever. But I was just wondering, like, do you know, I guess for the most part, like, I guess, amongst like black families, like, is it expected that, you date and marry another black person? And if you end up with a white person, does that sort of upset,
Yeah.
you know,
So
parents or?
yeah, so I'm raised Nigerian, so it's like a subculture, it's immigrant family. So it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that definitely my mom's like dream is for me to marry another Nigerian person
Mm.
from her exact tribe.
Oh
um,
wow.
which that was the situation for a lot of their families. They mostly married, within each other,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of like wars and like just intertribal, beefs, I want to call them. So I think that kind of led to, and it was based on corruption and colonialism. So I think they felt like they needed to stick together in order to sort of, prove a point, or to like keep wealth in between them, or just to like feel like they were special.
Hmm.
Um, so that was sort of the situation for my dad, for example, who I didn't grow up with. And that was part of the reason why that wasn't the situation, because my mom wasn't from the same place and they favored people who were from the same place. So I think race, like colorism, racism is something that's like not just like it's something that's also knee deep and exists even in like Africa.
Hmm.
But people are a lot more open, and I feel like sometimes economic reasons and just like migration is the reason why people are more open-minded, because they don't really have a choice. So for
Okay.
us, it's like, now they can't really complain. It's like you came all the way here and you're complaining that your child is with someone else. Like you basically like, like, why didn't you just stay where you were at? And it's also more difficult, like you have to like I've escaped arranged situations, honestly, from family. And I would have to date someone who's like almost close enough to my family to even, I might even call that person my cousin,
Hmm.
because I wanted to hook me up with this person.
Right, but it wasn't your actual cousin, right? Like it
It's not
wasn't.
my cousin. It's close enough. Like I could totally call this person my cousin
Oh, so they were related to you?
in a way, not directly. So
Oh,
like,
okay. Yeah, I
yeah, I'm
see.
just saying that that's how desperate they were.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Trying
Okay.
to explain how
Well,
the extent to which some people will go to, um, you know, bring their, like make sure that, stuff stays in the family or something like that.
right.
Um,
So how common? Sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question. So how common is arranged marriage? I guess in that culture, is it really common?
it used to be really common. Now it's kind of dying down because people are a lot more open and it's kind of like seen, but it's not seen as a bad thing, especially because you're not a child. Like they're basically trying to do their best for you to
Hmm.
find someone who they think according to what they feel is a match, and they assume that you're old now, and they're like, you're wasting time, you haven't found someone yet, and we need like our grandchildren, and we want someone who's there's a whole thing about meeting society standards. So for example, in African culture, in Nigerian culture, there's this like trend of like in taking care of your family. So like a mother would expect that her children and her in-law take care of them. So they're typically close. So I think their dream is that their child will be with someone who will eventually like take care of them and be like a son to them in a way. So when they think about like a foreigner, it starts to like, feel like a little scary and shaky. Like, they don't know this person, where they're coming from. They can't really like attest to like their behaviors, and they have this like thoughts about for people, white people, even a fellow like black people who are foreigners are like, oh, yeah, they don't have like a good upbringing. They talk, back to their parents. They don't take care of their parents. They have like all these thoughts, and that's what they're trying to avoid. Um,
Hmm.
being with a person like that. But the thing is, it's an individual basis. So I guess you'd have to be open enough to first of all meet the person. And I can say that was one of the things that I wanted. I wasn't super happy about my relationship, was that my boyfriend was raised to be very independent and not family oriented. He didn't
Hmm.
even do his like extended family. He didn't know any of this, like this side of like his like Asian side, except for maybe like one person. So for me, like that was like screaming, like flags. It's for my mom, especially, because like it just felt like he wasn't family oriented enough to like, want to make it like, work. Um,
Hmm.
because then he wouldn't get it. We just have a lot of like subtle cues and a lot of, when you step into the room, there's a way that you behave, there's a way that you talk to like your elders, there's a way that it's just like you all of a sudden you assume responsibility.
Hmm.
And um, I felt like some of my friends who are in other cultures, people who are mostly non-white, like sometimes you get it, some white people get it too, but I feel like it's slowly kind of disappearing in our culture, in
Hmm.
American culture, like broad American culture. So I think some people are just like wary of that. And it
Hmm.
doesn't help that, like, Black women are portrayed in this like way that, oh, like we're all like just out there doing hot girl summer. Um, so I feel like, yeah, other people might also might also see us in this way that we're also seeing them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely agree on how the media portrays, Black women.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, for this interview series, I've talked to quite a few Black women, and yeah, so your opinion all, agrees on the same thing. I think we all agree on that. And I've also, I just want to bring up when it comes to like, like the media and how it portrays, people of color in general, when it comes to Asian men are also portrayed in a very negative light. Um, and obviously it's in a very different way than, how Black women are portrayed, but Asian men are portrayed in a very sexless, undesirable, condescending, negative way
Mm,
that basically sort of dehumanizes Asian men. and makes us, just seem really, like I said, undesirable, unattractive, basically less than human people.
Yeah.
So yeah, the media definitely has, especially Western media. I know it's not necessarily the case in, other parts of the world, but in America, yeah, it's very, very bad. It's a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. And there's also like the lack thereof too. Like there's like for me, I don't really remember seeing a lot of like Asian characters on TV on just like mainstream media. So I basically would have no point of reference except for Jackie Chan and um, like I grew up watching a lot of Jackie Chan and I actually love Jackie Chan. I think everybody loves Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
The Rush Hour was amazing. I still want to see that Aaliyah movie. But yeah, I was really young, so I don't really remember like
Wait, hang.
yeah, I don't remember how to think about it. Like, oh, was he like portrayed in a non like, desirable way? But I do remember thinking that Asian guy meant like tough guy who can fight and is just there to fight and do his duty.
Hmm.
I remember,
Yeah.
I remember that part though. Yeah. Um,
So hang on. So I just want to show you. So the movie that you are talking about, hang on, the one, hang on, let me, I'm trying to figure something out here. Okay, so let's see here. What the hell? Uh, hang on. Um, just give me a sec. Hang on. So okay, so if you look at my profile picture right here, you'll see that that is the movie that you're talking about with Aaliyah, and
oh,
that's with the guy on the left is Jet Li, and that's
yes,
Aaliyah.
Lee.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and so
yeah,
that movie, I remember that movie. That movie came out in, like over 20 years ago, in
yeah.
2000, and obviously, that was before, she suddenly passed away.
I
But
know.
yeah, I remember. I know the movie very well. I've seen it.
Yeah, I saw a
I've seen it many
preview.
times.
Yeah, I always danced to Aaliyah. She's like one of my favorite like artists. I remember I think I saw most of what I saw was from the music video. So
Mhm.
I didn't actually see it. Um
Oh, you should. Yeah, you have to.
yeah. But I do feel like now there's like they're starting to kind of push that narrative. Like I started seeing like a lot of ads, like modeling ads or just like content where they would put like an Asian man or like a black woman in the same frame as like friends or like I started seeing that trend a lot actually recently, or maybe I'm just more cautious of it because I'm now in that situation. Um, yeah, so
Okay. Yeah.
interesting. But yeah, I never thought much of it. However, I also grew up watching Digimon and Sailor Moon and watching just like I guess like cartoon characters that looked a little bit more anime-ish. And I remember like also like the video game characters, I was always like attracted to them for some reason. But I didn't really understand, like it didn't make any sense. Like I didn't really attribute it to a specific person. I just remember, oh, like this is the type of, guy that I would like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's great because now you're with someone who looks exactly like one of the anime characters or anything like that. No, I'm
It's
just
so
kidding. I'm just
funny
kidding.
because okay, have you watched this? So there's this show called The Way of the House Husband.
Is that an anime?
It's this really short, silly show on Netflix. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if it's more American, but it's about this Japanese gangster guy who runs away from being a gangster and he has to change his ways. So now he has to like take care of his wife and become a house husband to avoid trouble. So basically, he looks like really hardcore, but then
Hmm.
he like does like all these cute things.
Okay. Yeah.
Like they just look it up. It's called The Way of the House Husband. And that guy, literally, that's how my boyfriend looks, but
That's
in a softer
interesting.
way. My boyfriend looks like the softer version of that guy, like how he is. It's funny.
No, it's
Uh,
actually, yeah. I actually did, prior to interviewing you today. I did get a chance to look at your Instagram really quickly.
yeah,
So actually, I've seen a picture of your boyfriend.
yeah,
And yeah, definitely what you're saying about, like, him having, him being of, mixed descent and having a lot of European features. Like I definitely see that. I definitely see that. So
He does get mistaken as Japanese sometimes, but sometimes like now I feel like he's been ever since like we've met, like he's been changing. Like
hmm
he didn't look typically like Asian. So now I think he looks, I don't know, depending on what he looks like in a day, he might look like he's Italian or something. That I think he gets that a lot. Um, that he looks like Italian. And for me, I'm just like, great, because I don't really care.
hmm.
Because I'm just like, because that's the same thing my friend was telling me, like, wait, you don't have a type? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I just want a person who like I'm attracted to and is like nice to me and we can do all this fun stuff together. Because I think that's the thing I really like about my boyfriend is that we can really have fun and he likes a lot of cute things, which is
hmm
really funny, like things that I never really shared with other guys. Yeah, like
hmm
he's really fine with like a lot of things. Um, so like I just felt really comfortable around him. Um, and sometimes I would say, oh yeah, maybe he's not like super masculine, even though he does sound and look masculine, but he's just like not like he's just like he doesn't have the same societal pressures of like how a guy is supposed to be.
Right, right. And
And I
do
want,
you
yeah, I used to wonder, was that's not an Asian thing, right? Like, cause I know a lot of other Asian guys, and I can't really say that they're all like that.
I think maybe that has something to do with maybe like his European heritage or background.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much, I guess, like romantic standards or expectations or whatever expectations, like gender roles, all that
yeah,
stuff, how that differs from here or from other parts of the world.
yeah,
But I suspect that that might have something to do with it.
yeah.
Um,
But he wouldn't like he's not. I don't. Yeah, he wouldn't like. I don't know what is a feminine thing to do. Like he's not like feminine. He's just not like the stereotypical masculine. Like he doesn't try to be broy or like like there's just a certain things that stereotypes of the way guys behave, and it's a lot of negative, not so great things, but things that girls are very attracted to.
So you're saying okay? So I think what you're talking about, like as far as like girls are attracted to here, is like bad boys. Is that what you're talking about? Like kind of like
Yeah,
a jerk.
a little bit, but like more dominant, um, broy,
Uh,
like
oh
hyper
wait,
masculine.
yeah.
Um,
Is are you saying that you're? So I'm just guessing here. Is he a hipster? Is that what I'm
is
saying? Is
he?
he kind of? Is he a hipster? Do you know? Do
I
you know
don't
what
know.
like a
He's just I. Okay, I make fun of my boyfriend all the time because I'm just like, I don't know how to like explain. He's just different. He's just different. He's not
okay?
hipster. He's like a regular dude. Like a regular,
Okay.
he's like a regular schmegular guy, but he doesn't have like all the I don't know, like I feel like there's a way that guys behave that he doesn't really like he's not like super into sports. He's not like always broy. He does like hanging out with his friends. He likes playing games. Um yeah, I don't know. Just it's just interesting. I guess you'd have to meet him to understand.
Well, yeah, like I said, this platform is always open to to whoever wants to come on the channel and stuff. So
I wish he's more on the reserved side. So I feel like I'm the talkative. I'm the spokesperson for the community, which is hilarious. But I did tell him that I was going to talk to you today, but I
so
wasn't.
right. So I'm just curious, like how do your personalities mesh? I mean, if because I'm sure that what I mean, you guys have a lot of chemistry, and you guys have a connection together. But I was just wondering, what I mean, because people say that opposites attract, and what I mean. For me personally, I know that all the girls that I've gone out with, their personalities are kind of like mine, but I know the opposites attract too. So what is it about your personalities that sort of click?
Um, but I feel like we were very different. I feel like he's the kind of person that I would never have, like if I met him, I would probably just like walk by. Like we would I feel like he's one of those situations where I don't think we would have ever like interfaced like in a romantic way. That's how I feel.
Interesting.
Like if I were like looking for guys and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm looking, like I mean, he's like super good looking. He's tall, like he's like all the like he's all the stuff like physically, but I just felt like in the kinds of things that we do and the kinds of the ways that we grew up, I just feel like we would never have crossed paths.
Hmm.
Like I'm a dancer. I used to do modeling. I'm really into R&B music. I'm really into like expression. I'm very like into like, theater and stuff. Um, he doesn't dance at all. I did try to get him to do stuff. I try to, teach him a lot more about my culture. He's been teaching me German. Um, uh, like he's been trying to get me to go hiking, which I was never doing before. Um, like he got me into games. He got me game consoles, which I've been slowly getting into now. I feel like I've started to share the same things that he likes
Mhm.
because I like him, because I love him. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah, how they like he never used to I like Korean dramas. He never watched a Korean drama. I basically forced him into it and now he's like watching it. Um
Yeah.
he likes like sitcoms. I don't know, like does the doctor Scrubs or like I don't know, Brooklyn 99, and he likes anime obviously. um he likes a lot of sci-fi, like scary stuff, dark stuff, and I'm just like I like fluffy, I like marshmallows, I like all the beautiful things. um so I guess we're really opposite. um like he's a lot more quiet, I'm more talkative and reserved, I'm a lot more friendly. Anytime I go out, I end up like knowing the entire block. Meanwhile, he'll just be fine. Like he's very fine being by himself. Like when I met him, he said he was going to LA by himself, and he went. And I remember feeling like really sorry for him and wishing that he had someone to go with. And that's when I feel like, and he was totally fine. Like there was nothing wrong. He was just fine. He was just going by himself.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I'm glad that, even though you guys, have, like your differences or whatever in terms of, personality or interests or whatever, it's good that you connect.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like when we eventually got to get together, we just couldn't leave each other. um yeah, but I remember like he made me definitely more stay at home. I definitely played the most games when I was with him. um Definitely had a lot of fun being like by myself and not being like on social media and doing all the other stuff. Like I felt like fine being like that, but I pushed him to go outside more, to like go to all like my events, like fashion shows and dance events and all the other stuff. I think it's also like cultural, like all the pop culture, all the stuff that we're talking about Asian men. He never had those experiences, like about he didn't know anything about like how bad racism was in America, for example.
That's interesting. Because I kind of I'm gonna say something that might sound a little bit controversial, but well, not really. Actually, no, because actually, it's not coming directly from my mouth. It's more of an observation that I've heard a lot of Americans say, especially a lot of Black Americans say, and
Yeah,
that is that a lot of Black Americans, or at least the ones that I've talked to, have this assumption that a lot of European or Black people in Europe, like in general, they don't have to experience the same level of racism that Black Americans had to experience here. um and I don't, I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but I personally don't know if that's if obviously if that's true or anything like that, because I haven't, well, first of all, I've never been to Europe. So and then I just don't know, but I mean, like, I think in general, I think I
I
mean, yeah.
I think they're just like not socially aware. I feel like in Europe there's a lot of like African refugees,
Yeah. Yeah.
or people, and knowing, having grown up partly in Africa, I know the struggle and people wanting to just get out and go to like other places to like survive. And they always end up doing really well whenever they go to outside, like all the things that they couldn't do with like minimal effort, they're able to like just like do it like straight up. And they end up just like really excelling. So I feel like maybe they're just like happy to be there, that they don't realize like all the racist like situations. Whereas in America, it's like very obvious because the country is built on slavery. There's still people who are alive today who weren't allowed to go to school, because they were Black with other people. There's still people that are alive today who weren't allowed to drink from the same fountain, who weren't allowed to do a lot of things, and their grandkids and their kids are alive. And it's still pretty fresh, the memory is fresh. Some of the people that are racist, it's like sometimes I don't know if it's like a genetic racism or if it's just like the bias of like having grown up with like some racist like behavior. So it's still pretty like, it's like a thing that they're kind of like overlooking. America hasn't like completely solved. For example, genocide in Germany, like the Jewish like Holocaust, like Germans are very aware of it. They're like, they accepted it, they apologized, they're very sorry, they're never doing it again. If you mention anything like that, like you can't even mention it. Like, like it's very, very clear that that was like a wrong thing. And you never talk about it. You never say anything, bad about Jewish people in, Germany. Like ask
Right.
any like about Hitler. It's like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. Um, so I think that's the difference. So I think maybe they've kind of, and Germany was also like, they had to start all over again, kind of like in Japan. They had to like start afresh in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that kind of led to like a lot of different behaviors and a lot of different cultural like movements and their attitudes towards certain, things. Meanwhile, in America, we still have those old systems still existing, and we're trying to slowly, you know, move away from it. And some people are faster moving away from it than others. Some people want to pretend like it never happened.
Yeah.
Some people were not there, so they don't really know that it happened, and they're just learning about it. And there's some people, even like Black people from other countries, are coming to America and finding out that they're different,
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very interesting sort of topic to talk about, because I feel like every country has like a very something in its past that's very ugly, and
Yeah.
that makes that people don't want to talk about. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, like I think it might be a little bit different now, but like when I was when I was like in school, like in elementary school and in middle school and high school, especially in elementary school, I remember the history books not really talking about slavery, like at
Mm,
all. Like it mentions Abraham Lincoln, it mentions all the all the happy and like the more, I guess, light side, the more lighthearted side of it, but they don't really go into the details, what I mean, of what
yeah.
happened.
Yeah. That's
And it's
true. Yeah.
yeah, no,
And yeah, it's a huge debate right now.
yeah.
It's a huge debate. Like people are fighting against talking about critical race theory. It's called a myth. So you can see like there's a lot of people trying to just, escape the topic and not, talk about it. Like it's really funny. It's like like Black people are out here like talking about it, trying to like heal, but it's difficult to heal if the people that hurt you aren't even admitting it.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
saying get over it. So that's
right.
why it's hard. I think that's why we're not over it. That's why America is the way, that's why it's so tense.
hmm Well, I
Yeah.
mean, America, honestly, they say it's the land of the free. They say it's the greatest country in the world. I mean, in some ways it might be. In a lot of ways, it's not.
Yeah.
But and that's also the one thing, on the topic of, Americans not want to talk about it, or white people not want to talk about it. I definitely, I know that America, America, I guess especially, is still having the conversation over, reparations and whether,
Yeah.
people are owed it. I personally believe that yes, reparations are a good thing and they should be paid. But again, that's not the country. That's a country that we should live in, but
Hmm.
it's honestly, in my opinion, not the country that we live in.
Hmm.
And I feel like change in itself. Okay, so honestly, on my honest opinion, change only comes when it's a last resort, when your backs are up against the wall and you're basically at, an all-time low, and you're in a really bad place and you're being forced to change.
Yeah.
Other than that, people don't change, right? I mean, this sort of begs the question, are things like racism and prejudice, are they inherent, are they innate, are they something that, people are sort of just born with that hatred, or is it learned, is it passed down? And me personally, I think a lot of it is innate. I think a lot of it is innate, and I have my own personal reasons for that. But I don't believe that this is the type of video to go into that.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe we can make another topic where you talk about,
yeah, no, for
like,
sure.
because I feel like there's a lot to unpack in like Asian sentiments. Because I feel like I know that not all Asian people are the same. However, I have experienced like some sort of, racism, for just knowing someone knowing that I'm Black and the person was like Chinese, and not, just like not wanting to know anything about me, just sort of like rip me off because I'm
Mm,
Black, or like being treated a little differently, even though like, like I feel like before people know me, like when people find out like my accomplishments, they're always like flawed, like they're like, oh wow, that's crazy. But I don't want to have to tell you what I've done for you to like respect me. I don't want
right.
to have to tell you who I am for you to respect me. Like I want to be respected just because I exist, just because like, just because I'm meeting you and I'm treating you with the benefit of a doubt. Um, so I feel like it's a lot of that. And even with all of those accomplishments, I feel like I don't know, I feel like some Asian parents prefer would prefer like a white, like person over like a Black person, um, without even knowing anything. Like there's a difference between like, like what I was telling you before,
Hmm.
cultural expectation of like expecting someone to know your culture and have like respect and responsibility and a sense of like kinship. And now this person's a foreigner now. So what you gonna do? Like are you gonna throw them away because they don't know your culture? Like there's a different way, but then when you start to like pick them apart because they're white, it starts, or they're because they're Black, then it starts to like hurt. It's not just because they're foreigner, but because you also have this preconceived notions. You think they're going to be a loser, you think that they're less than, so you don't even want to have anything to do with them. You're afraid of your kids being dark skinned, things like that. So I've had to unfortunately experience that from Asian people, even though I do have a lot of amazing friends that are Asian. I know a lot of older people. Like basically, I'm surrounded around like Asian people who are great, but it's still sad to like have this experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. And me personally, I've heard of the, I guess, like, I don't, I don't know if you call it stereotype or whatever, but for lack of a better word, let's just call it that. For the stereotype of, Asian parents, not approving, of their children, being with, Black people.
Yep.
I can say just from my personal experience that that's not the case with my family. My parents were, very accepting of, me dating Black women.
Is your
Um,
from America or are they from Asia?
yeah, so my dad actually comes from Asia. My mom is also Asian, but she's Asian American. She was born in the States.
Oh,
Um,
I think
so
that
yeah.
makes a lot of difference, I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so I'm guessing that what was I gonna say?
Yeah,
So
go ahead. You were saying that
no, no, that's fine. So
parents like that, basically.
yeah, no,
But
so oh no,
parents
I'm
are like,
sorry.
no, you were saying that your parents are not like that. And I'm just saying that I bet that your mom being American has something to do with it because she grew up here.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that might have something to do with it. But like I said, my parents are just, and I think in general they're very open-minded.
Yeah,
I mean, even before I, went out with black women, or just like in general, like had much dating experience at all, my parents knew that, a lot of my friends that I grew up with were of different races.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like a lot of families in general in the town that we lived in Los Angeles, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a melting pot, you know what I mean? So you have black, you have Asian, you have brown, you have white, you have all kinds.
yeah,
So it really wasn't, like a random or huge, huge thing that, people went out with people from different races. Um, and so yeah, so I had a question. So what is your general opinion on how I guess, your family or other families that that are, mostly black families, how they would react to, their daughters dating Asian men? Is that something
yeah.
that yeah.
I have a story. So recently, so I told you I'm African, right? But then I have
Yeah.
siblings who are like African. I'm considered African American because I'm African and American, but I'm not like a descendant of slavery. So it's
Mhm.
a different experience, and I feel like we need to also acknowledge that because I don't have the same, like I have the experience now, but I didn't grow up with the same type of fears, and I didn't grow up with the trauma. I didn't grow up, having this thought of fear about race. Like I wasn't thinking about race basically my whole life.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
feel like Black people in America have had to think about race their whole life.
Right.
That makes sense. However, my siblings, on the other hand, have had to think about race their whole life because they're mixed. And um, and my cousin, she's also Nigerian, but she married a Black guy, like a Black American guy, and that was like interesting because I think nobody else like married, like I mean my stepbrother, he's like dating like a Black woman, but even the woman she's dating, she's like light skin. um so I feel like there's a little bit of that subtle, like what do you call it, it's not like overt, it's just like a subtle like preference that people tend to develop when they're here.
Like
um,
colorism, is that what you're talking about?
it's just like really subtle, like it's not like intentional, it's just, I feel like we all kind of have a little bit of that lingering in us, so we have to be aware of it. um yeah. So I see it, it's just like this thing that you see but nobody like says it explicitly.
Hmm.
But it was really cool that she like married a guy because I've heard people say things like, oh, like, there's a stereotype of like Black people being like, irresponsible, blah, blah, blah. So basically all the stereotypes that you're seeing, like we also, like even African American and African communities have the same like, thoughts too sometimes, um, because that's what is being shown to them, and that's what they're seeing. So that's one. And two, so that's there, so there, there's this illusion, there's this one part of like, okay, we're hoping you find, okay, like we're hoping you find like a nice, like African guy, okay, maybe you find a nice like Black guy, they're like, I'm not sure, like they're just kind of like iffy. And then they're like, what the hell's gonna happen? Let's do an arranged marriage for this girl because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Mm.
um because they're like worried, right? um and then there's like the okay, now I bring my boyfriend, he's like, he looks Asian presenting, right?
Right.
Wedding. And I realized it was different. My cousin had Asian friends because she's a doctor, she's an emergency doctor, and a lot of the emergency doctors were also like Asian. And most of her friends also happened to be Asian. And I realized they were all sitting down in one corner by themselves. Like they're mostly sitting down. They later on came on to dance, but I just realized, I noticed that pattern, right? And my
Hmm.
boyfriend's over there sitting down with me on with my side of the family, and he just like stands out, right?
Hmm.
Because he looks kind of Asian. Um, And I remember I knew that people were talking, but they didn't, nobody said anything to my face until my auntie literally said, "You're dating an Asian guy, huh?" Like she just said, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this piece of commentary, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like, duh. I don't know. Like, yeah. So that was just one thing that happened. And I realized I was the only one in the entire family. Everybody was with like a white person or another Nigerian person and most likely like a black person. And I'm the only one who's like dating a half Asian person, and that happens to make like a difference. Like, what the heck? Um,
Right.
so, but no, it's not. It wasn't like a problem. There was no problem, but I just felt it. I just felt like, oh yeah, this is different. But again, I'm also like a weirdo. So, according to my family standards, like I've done all the things that they said I shouldn't do. I've done modeling, I've done dancing, and I've still done all the stuff that they wanted me to do. So I'm already like quite out there. So I didn't think they should expect anything better from me, I guess. Um, so so that was just one thing I realized. But after talking to my mom, I think she was kind of hoping and praying that maybe this would like fade away and she wouldn't have to see him again. And then finally she started liking him. And then I think one time she thought, because I have other friends and I was posting pictures of my other friends, and she was worried that she didn't see like my boyfriend's picture, right? And she
Mm.
was like, what happened? And she's like all worried and whatnot. And she's like wondering how he's doing and always asking about him. And I realized that she had like softened up, like she softened and she like was accepting of him, and she probably would appreciate him, you know, if we were to move on and get married and other things.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's when I felt like, okay, like I know that my parents are not like they do have prejudices because of how they're raised, but
Mhm.
they're not racist. Like they don't, like they basically are basically their judgment is based on what they've seen, but not on the person. So not that they know who, if they were to judge, they're judging him for who he is, not
Right.
because of his ethnicity.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, like you literally just said, I mean, people should be, that's how it should be. People should definitely judge them on who they are, not what they are. Unfortunately, though, I feel like the rest of the world does not agree with that statement. It is something that sounds really good in theory.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do not practice that because that's just how they are as people. That's just how
Yeah.
their brains
It's
work.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ironic because like literally everybody complains. And I feel like white people, like even though like I'm probably gonna be one of the people who yells, white people, yeah, annoying people. But I feel like they get the hard end of the stick because every other family who's like immigrant or like any other culture is like automatically thinking that the white person's going to start some shit. So, so they automatically kind of get that like, oh, you're going to be racist. And I think that's about it. I think that's the only thing they have to like deal with. Um, but otherwise, I think I don't think there's any other like negative connotations as much as like being black and like expecting all this other like negative things from a person for like, you know, being black. I feel like white people are allowed to be everything. They're allowed to be a killer. They're allowed to be all these things, but they don't assume that when a white person walks in, that person is a school shooter, or when a white person walks in your house, they're going to be this and that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you there. I personally have my own issues, or my own issues and thoughts on that subject. And
Yeah.
especially my own experiences with white people,
Yeah.
that have not been, for the most part, they've all been, or not all, but a lot of them have been hugely negative.
Oh.
And I mean, here's the thing too, and obviously I can't speak for all Asian people,
Mhm.
or all Asian American people, I guess, more accurate. But I will say this, that even though you see a lot of Asian people who might seem like they love white people,
Mhm.
and when I say that, I mean, I think we're kind of, I don't have to say exactly what I'm talking about. I think we both kind of know what I'm talking about, who I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But I will say that Asian men are not necessarily like that too. Yes, you see a lot of Asian people, who do like white people, you know what I mean, or might be, kiss asses or whatever. But I like I said, I myself have had more negative experiences with Caucasians than positive ones. And here's the thing though. Here's the thing. So obviously, you know what I mean. Like I'm not trying to demonize anybody, but I do have to be honest because I don't want it to seem like like black and brown people have to are in this struggle alone in terms of how they are perceived largely by white people and how they're treated, because I
Mhm.
feel like Asian people in general are also people of color. and
Mhm.
and and here's the thing though, we don't normally get included in conversations like this
Yeah.
because I think because of a lot of socio-economical factors too. um
Yeah.
and it's kind of unfair, and it's also inaccurate. It's very inaccurate to assume that Asians and whites love each other, or Asian people love white people. I don't love white people.
Mhm.
I don't hate them. I don't hate anybody, but I will say that I do have my own thoughts on the matter of white people, and yeah, it's not great. Let's just say that it's not all positive.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
so glad that experience. And that's like, I thought like LA would be more, I don't know. I've only visited, so I haven't stayed like in LA. So I don't, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why I have more Asian friends than white friends. Um, maybe that's the subtle reason, or I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm just like inherently like just racist and just filtering
no, no,
what
no,
people.
no, no, no. You know what I think it is. I think a lot of people just are sort of I mean, sometimes you just can't help the way you feel, but at the same time, nobody is in your shoes. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what it's like to be you, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So yeah.
But yeah, I don't have, I would say like the closest white people I have are people who are related to me.
Mm.
And even then, like even within the family, like you still kind of feel like, for example, whenever they come around, like they might not want to eat like certain things. Um, it just feels very like, they always have like this like, like they know it. They're like, oh, I'm not gonna eat, it's too spicy, or I'm gonna eat, like they just like say this like really obviously, and they kind of like separate themselves. And when we go to their house, we have to eat like semi-bland food, like, things like that.
Yeah,
And
well, I mean, there's that stereotype too that white people don't like to season their food.
the thing is that
Um,
it's not a stereotype, like I have to deal with this every other weekend.
all right, yeah.
And again, it's just one person, right? I,
Mhm.
I have like other friends that are white, but it's just sad because most of my friends are not white, but I do have white friends that are great. I
Mhm.
it's so funny, when I moved here, the one girl that I thought was my white friend, she happened to be half Asian.
Okay, interesting.
And
Yeah.
I was like, that shows how many white friends I have. It's like all my white friends are half half Asian.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of half Asians, so um,
Yeah. Um, so it's like, yeah, I think, yeah, oh my, they're always like, all my white friends are like half something, half Hispanic, half Asian, half Indian, I don't know. They always have something in them. Like I tried making like friends with my neighbor, who's like, because I live in like a nice like we have a rooftop and there's like a pool at the top. And I realized again, all my friends that I'm making there, mostly Asian. There's like one white guy that's kind of friendly. But one time we were in the hot tub and he was like something something, but Trump like was wishing the best for you. He was gonna try to help healthcare. And all of a sudden I just looked at him this weird way. And he was like, oh my God, all the color just drained from my face. It's like he felt it like I was shooting him.
hmm.
I just felt like that. Like I felt like I was eliminating him. Like the minute he just mentioned Trump, I just had
Mhm.
this like, yeah, he's one of those white people. And all of a sudden I just kind of like shut down. I don't know. And I'm just like, I feel like I do have maybe some sort of prejudice. And it's gonna be weird because my grad school is in Iowa and it's mostly white people.
Hmm.
So good luck to me. I'm
Well,
to deal with that.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, Iowa, yeah, that's but yeah. So I just also have a question.
Yeah.
This is kind of related to AMBW, but kind of off tangent too. So I have noticed that there's a lot, and especially in LA, there
Mhm.
I've seen quite a few black and white couples, and I mean mostly black women with white men.
Yeah.
And I so here's my question, and it's not, if it sounds ignorant, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound ignorant, but I genuinely want to know because I'm just very curious about it. So
Yeah.
I know obviously I know for a fact that there are a lot of you know I guess black people who don't necessarily like white people, for you know what I mean, or vice versa. And I just had a question though. So as many issues that the two groups might have with each other,
Mhm.
why is it that I see a lot of black women dating white men? You know what I
Um,
mean?
I see what you mean. I feel like when it comes like blacks and white in America, I feel like I'm an outlier. I feel like as much as black people like say they don't like white people, they've been the longest together, like they have more in common than anybody else,
Mm,
unfortunately. Um when you compare like immigrants, like black culture is like most black people have some white ancestry, like most black people, like almost every black person in America has some white ancestry, unfortunately.
mm,
And nobody like talks about that. Nobody talks about the fact that these people fighting all the time are literally related.
right.
Yeah. um so I feel like it's kind of this weird thing, and that's why you kind of see there's some, if you see like Republican groups where like it's like black Republicans, all of a
Mm-hmm,
sudden you see like white and black people like all of a sudden like gelling
mm-hmm,
on the same things and about being American and whatnot. Like that's probably the reason. It's like this unconscious thing that they know that they share, that they just it just happens to be there. Like if every war is like, and that's where I know that there were Asians there too, but they kind of get written out. I didn't really learn. I did learn a little bit, but they weren't as pronounced as like how black people and white people are in terms of America. America is very black and white.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess yeah, that's something I didn't really think about. And I think to use the word like unfortunately is kind of an understatement, but yeah, I do unfortunately think that you are right when it comes
Yeah.
to
Like, yeah, people don't
yeah.
think about, even black people sometimes they don't even realize how much their culture, and I think they're kind of fighting against it. So I feel like when you come to America, you have to kind of pick a side. You're like, am I gonna be like like pro-American, like status quo, like not like pro-American in like oh, like I love America because of what it is now, or like I want to just like represent American history, knowing that American history has this like really weird past, but they want you to sort of like be pro-American and ignore what happened and just like swallow it up and be pro-American. So there's black people who are like that. Um, and they're, some people call them Uncle Toms or whatever. But it's unfortunately like they were taking care of white people. Black people raised white people's kids. Black people did all the work, made the food, like literally were the oil and the rake for like America. So it's like everything, like black people, like black history is American history. It's just that now, because black people were kind of fighting what happened to them, they've been through so much that it's like they've been through so much shit and they've kind of accepted it. But white people kind of want them to just continue to like accept it and just like move on. But then there's like this reality that this crazy thing exists, this like insecurity, and then there's like black people fighting against it. So that's why you have this like alternate like black culture that's trying to revert to like draw something from Native American culture, draw something from African culture, like this Afrocentricism is just a way to like push away from um what happened, basically. Because if you remove all the like Afro, like any, if you remove like basically if you remove African from African Americans, they're just going to be, you know, like white people.
Well, do you think that Afrocentric, sorry, sorry, uh, do you think that what's the correct term? There's a term. What am I trying to say? Never mind. I got my words all tongue tied and all that stuff. But basically, um, yeah, I mean, it is very interesting to note, sort of how like cultures blend into each other. Um,
Yeah.
but it's also, I just want to also point out that I've always thought it's ironic that everyone who's not black seems to try to appropriate black culture. And all the while there are so many that it's kind of hypocritical or kind of like double standard, because while people try to appropriate black culture, a lot of those people are actually racist themselves.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's kind of like they're just trying to profit off of black culture for their own gain, or to make themselves look, I don't know, quote unquote cooler, or you know what I mean, just like a certain way. But at the same time, they're kind of idiots for doing that because they're also
Yeah.
racist.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, it's because it's cool, it's different. So, okay, think about it. Like this, the way that American culture is like this like bland escapist like propaganda from like running away from Britain and all the European immigrants who basically built America to succeed and become individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of forgot about a little bit of their culture, forgot about all the things that make people human.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Black people basically were all like now like stripped, like it wasn't even voluntary, at least for white people. They voluntarily forgot about their culture. Black
Right.
people stripped of their culture, like completely like stolen, like uprooted from the stuff that makes them them, right? So
Right.
now they're basically now also trying, like forced in this place where they're supposed to assimilate, and they have kind of been raised to follow um, this like white process, white way of doing things. And that's what they mostly aspire to. Like if you watch all the old like Black movies or look at old Black history, like Black people had to basically assimilate to whiteness.
Yes.
Everything they did was literally, so they basically they decided, okay, like nah, like we need to carve and we need to find ourselves. They basically trying to find themselves, and that's why Black subculture is born, is all the
Mm-hmm.
remnants, is like like all the dreams of like where they're coming from, trying to remember what the beat sounded like, trying to remember what the food tastes like, trying to remember what being human feels like, in motherland. And now that's like now layered onto what American culture supposedly is. Um, and that kind of put the layer for a lot of like the food that we have, like all the way that American accent and the southern drawl. It's like basically like it's really weird, like Black people, like Black accent is just like southern white accent.
Right.
Yeah, it's very 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 weird, like it's just a lot, with some like trying to remember where you're coming from in there, with like not being allowed to be educated properly. So that's why like like there's a thing called speaking white, and that's why it has this like negative connotation. um
Yes.
it's either
100%.
positive or it's negative, and people, I feel like immigrants are kind of in this in a bad spot where they're like just trying to survive. They're trying to live the American dream, and it looks like the right way is like the white way and the bad way is the Black way. That's what it looks like.
Well, so okay, so that's very very interesting topics. So on that note, do you think that what am I trying to say? So on that note, like I assume that you know what I mean when I say that a lot of women in this country, they tend to say that I'm trying to date up by dating a white man, you know what I mean, or marrying a white man.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel yeah, that is because white people were perceived as the status quo, perceived as more successful in the past. Like, like I feel like in all the animosity of like Black men and Black women was from history, knowing that women had to save their husbands by, agreeing to be with their stupid master, their slave master, who sometimes, impregnated them, just and did things just to spite the man. Like they did everything to sort of tear their culture. So there's that like pain, that deep ingrained, like pain of like betrayal, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess that's why there's a huge topic. That's why Black women weren't like comfortably dating out for a long time, because Black men see themselves as there because of the 1% rule. So if you're like 1%, if you're a little bit Black, then they consider you Black. So Black men think it's okay to date out and it's fine, but it's not okay when Black women date out because it's seen as like an L.
Well, you know what, and I've heard that, but that like honestly that's the thing with Black people, but it's also a thing with literally everybody like on this planet. It's like here's the thing too, like okay, so me maybe I'm a hypocrite because I have criticized Asian women for dating white men. But here's the thing though, I don't give a shit who they date. I care about why they date who they
Yeah,
date.
yeah, I agree.
You
I
know?
like if you're doing it because you want to, um, like if you think that, oh, these people are better, then I'm 100% against it. I definitely have felt before, a lot of I've had people say like, oh yeah, white men are like nicer. They don't have this patriarchal behavior.
Hmm.
Because a lot of women from other cultures, they think that the men from their culture is like too macho. Um, and they think that white men are gonna be like this, like um, I don't know, this like soft, I don't know, like TV prince that they're,
Yeah.
yeah, they have this like concept of like how he's going to be. And they think he's going to be like financially like better off or something. And then they like meet the reality.
I
Um,
mean, it's just for me personally, like one of my aunts obviously is Asian American, and she's only ever dated and married white men. And
mhm.
I've always wondered this. I mean, she's a lot older now, but I've always wondered this growing up. Like, if it never works out, if she always ends up divorcing these guys, why does she keep going after white men?
I know,
I mean,
right?
it's just
I
like
think it's also like
yeah.
ingrained. And I think, I just found out what Asian persuasion means today.
Hmm.
So I read it means like someone who like dates Asian and then only dates like Asian. I think this is similar for people who date like Black women or date only white people, like because they think they know like this person, this people, they know this pattern. So now they're like comfortable with it in a way.
I mean, do you think that white men are considered the safe option
I
in
don't think so. Like I've always avoided like white men.
so
Not,
you've never dated white men? You've
no,
never dated them?
I have dated white men. I
Oh,
just
okay.
never seriously. Um, like I mean, I feel like most of the people, I feel like I've had to go out of my way to date like Asian guys, like as opposed to like if I were to, so if I have lots of options, I would say like 80% of my options are like white men, and then 20% is like Asian men.
Mm,
And then it's like sad, there's like 1-2% Black men in there.
yeah.
I would have to like go to another country to like find Black men. Or go to like I have to go to like a specific place. Um, and I'm now starting to meet more people, and I still love like Black men. I feel like I can't help but love Black men because I'm Black. Like it's just like that's just natural. Um, like I can't hate myself.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think they're attractive. I think I'm attracted. Like it's more about the personality and the culture. I just find myself now, um, like I feel like I'm more focused about the thing, like get like it, like how my family's focused on responsibility, duty, all this, all these things, family
Yeah.
kinship. Like I feel like I've grown to like be very specific about all those things, and then finding someone who like I'm attracted to, but also can likes the same things that I like, or has the same like values as I am. That kind of drives who I'm with, rather than the person, like, you know, like the fact that they're white or they're black. Like if it was a white guy and he had this like I know there's a white guy, but it's kind of sad because he's kind of almost like a wigga. I don't know, like he's really into hip hop. He's not he doesn't act black, but he's like really, really into hip hop. He's a hip hop dancer, is like really, really good at what he does. I found myself like attracted to this guy. And I think he's one of the few white guys that I was actually attracted to. We had a lot of like similar like values and whatnot. So I was like, okay, I can date someone like that. But I feel like in my mind, I'm like, oh, I think Asian or like Mexican people or any other ethnicity, even Indian people, I feel like I have a lot more in common with those people. And that's because I grew up in a different country too.
Do you think I'm trying to say, um, don't you think it's a bit hypocritical when this is sort of related, but don't you think it's a bit hypocritical when and not just black women do this, but like, other women of color, when they might, when they might be advocates for, social change or whatever, especially when it comes to, what I mean, like their race and stuff like that in America and how they're
Yeah.
treated. And then, they're all campaigning for, all equality, all that stuff, and then they go home to their white boyfriends and white husbands. Do you think that
I
is a little bit hypocritical?
A little bit, I would say, because okay, so mine's an example, right?
Mm,
So I feel like I didn't actively like seek out. So I guess if I want the best option of a guy, I'm not really looking at like the ethnicity. I'm looking more about the quality of the interaction that I have with that person. So I think once you think about it like that, you start to think of it less about you start to think about it more about like options, because a lot of dating is about options, right?
right.
So you like if I lived in a country with mostly black people, like I'm not gonna date a white person or an Asian person. If I lived in a country of like Asian people, I'm not gonna date a white person uh, or a black person, except if I happen to be lucky and meet someone who's like me exactly, who happened to be single. Do you get what I mean? So I just wanted to like clear that out first, because I feel like there's like the option situation, and it is also like then there's self-selecting, and there's like preferences, and there's preferences driven by societal, like what people think is good looking or what people think is, the best partner or whatever, which we all have probably need work, because I feel like everybody has, stereotypes in their head.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's just usually, because I've
Yeah,
been to
but
other.
I was gonna answer your question because I do have experience with that specific thought.
Okay.
So my boyfriend is a great example. So he doesn't know anything about. It's like I'm dating a white guy and an Asian guy at the same time. That's what it feels like.
Hmm.
Like, okay, so like the white guy in him is like, I mean, actually, it's just the fact that I'm dating a foreigner. He doesn't know about American history. So when I talk about all the stuff that's going on, it sounds like, from his perspective, it sounds like I'm just like, I just love pain. I just love to talk about like racism, and I just enjoy like race baiting. That's what it sounds like.
Mm,
Like because he doesn't know, like he thinks that is not, he doesn't see how apparent, he thinks like the more that I focus on it, the more of a problem it becomes.
mm,
And to an extent he was right, because I wasn't like that before. I didn't used to focus on my race a lot before.
mhm,
That's the thing that I grew up thinking about until I saw Trayvon Martin's death.
mm.
Yeah.
So, so I guess that sort of paints a bigger picture for me now too, because going back to earlier topics we were talking about, I
Yeah.
do I do feel like this kind of confirms the fact that a lot of how your boyfriend perceives, maybe like racism in America or different things in America, a lot of it is based on just his lack of exposure to it.
Yeah. Not
Because yeah.
exposure and the lack of like his personality is probably like not the kind that likes confrontation.
Hmm.
Um, some people like, and there's this all ethnicities of people who would rather like avoid talking about something that's painful.
Mhm.
But from some of us, we can't afford to not talk about it. We have to talk about it because unfortunately this is our reality, so we can't escape it. But he never had this, so it feels like something that he has been able to escape for a long time.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it's like opening. So it's basically like I'm waking him up into like a bad reality that he
Well,
doesn't face.
no, I mean to him that's not his reality, right?
Yeah, it's not his reality. Like it's a bad, like it's not his reality. He can't relate. But
Right.
then the more he finds out, the more evil, like the more like the world starts to feel less and less secure, and the less like basically whatever he thought, whatever convictions he had of the world is like now being broken down by me.
So, this might be kind of a personal question, but I think it's a good question to ask. Do you feel as though things like that might fracture your relationship in the
Yeah,
future?
it did. It did fracture our relationship for a lot, and that was like one of the like deal breakers. But I feel like now I feel like I've talked about it enough to the point where he he's starting to get it. Like he no longer like questions it. Like he 100% like now without a doubt, like he fully understands like the gravity of the situation.
Hmm.
It just took him a long time, and it was really annoying. And I do feel like many times I did ask myself, why the hell am I with this person who doesn't get it? But then I had to be like patient, knowing that he wasn't experiencing and seeing it from his perspective. Like
Hmm.
he could never see it from my perspective, I mean.
Right. So,
And
oh yeah, no,
oh,
I'm sorry, go on.
oh sorry, I watched a video, and I thought this was just because he was foreign, right?
Hmm.
I watched a video and I felt that white men in America also have the same experience
As
as my boyfriend did. Like they
oh,
did
okay.
have, they live here, they see it, but they are completely like it's like they just like close their eyes and just like try to live like it's nothing.
Well, see, here's my opinion, and I think I kind of know what you're getting at. So, and
Yeah,
again, I'm not trying to say this is all white people because I have white friends, I have
yeah,
white people that are married to my family. So this is not a reflection of all white people, but it is a reflection to a lot of white people. And I think that personally, especially when it comes to, I know I keep going back to dating, but when it comes to dating, especially, white men don't understand what it's like to be discriminated against. They don't have to, especially when it comes to dating,
yeah,
because here's what I'm talking about too. Not only do white men don't understand, but they don't understand it because they are highly favored amongst women and like women
yeah,
in general.
yeah, it's true. I have to agree with you that when any foreigner, so think about it, you know, think about colonialism. Anytime there was like a savior coming from another place to like save some people in like an African village or an Indian village or an Asian village, it was always like some white people, right?
Right.
When they watched TV and they aspired to come to America and they aspired to meet Prince Charming, what view did they have of? It was a white person.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the thing that they don't know, like they're not aware of, but it's starting to shift, especially with this like AMBW movement. I feel like Asian men are starting to get like more of that visibility of who they've always been. And then with like the advent of like K-pop, like they've always been like attractive. They've always been these cool people, but it's just that people weren't seeing it. Like people didn't, it's just not a thing that people were looking at.
Yeah.
Same thing. And I feel like it's the same for like, you know, Black women. Like before, like for example, like Marilyn Monroe, like all the, just think about all the like sex, all the, you know, all the beauty standards that everyone's pursuing today. It's like a lot of features that are, you know, found in like, you know, African features, but that it's like lips or like, you know, curves or like a darker, or, you know, like glowing skin tone.
Hmm.
Um, or like wanting curly hair, like all these like the same things like people are looking for, but they refuse to like I don't know, it's there, but they refuse to see it in a way. So it's kind of like what? Like they just had the first Black Maxim cover, who happened to be Tiana Taylor. I'm like, is she the first attractive Black woman that they found this whole time? Like, really? Like, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But again, um, I don't I feel like it also sounds a little bit like vain to like worry about, oh, people see you attractive, especially if you have other things to worry about. You know what I mean? If you're worrying about like your family, back in the day, like women, they weren't like worrying about, oh, they're not enough representation of like, blah, blah, blah in the media. That wasn't the goal. They're trying to survive. They're just trying to, you know, live another day, provide for their family, get educated. So like even that wasn't even like the thing they were looking for. So they probably also never aspired to like I feel like that's why again I can relate to Asian people being immigrant or just like any immigrant in general, is that when you come to like America, you're not trying to aspire to be the next best like looking person. You're like trying to go to school, you're trying to survive just to like, barely like match the American dream. So you're not gonna become an actor, an actress, even if you have like mad talent. You're more likely to put your head down and look for like a stable, practical job, which doesn't put you in a light for like, oh, the most desirable person,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
yeah.
I have to say this because I literally okay. So after this is done, when you have time, tomorrow or like whenever, like you should watch the other interview that I did. It's on my channel. I just dropped it on my channel. It's called Interview with JT Tran, and him and I were just talking about it earlier today.
Mhm.
Like way earlier today, and we were saying, okay, why is it that a lot of Asian men, or sorry, a lot of Asian or Asian American men in America have so much problems, with women and with dating and stuff like that. And we both agreed that, like, it might be because we just weren't, we a lot of Asian people, a lot of young Asian men or whatever, were not told or taught by their parents how to approach women. Because, like you're saying right now, it wasn't one of the priorities. Like we were taught how to survive, how to be
Yeah.
successful, but from a Western cultural point of view, that stuff isn't necessarily sexy. It's not exactly what gets you women in America. It's not.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean by like um like black and white experiences.
Mhm.
Like black people still had to fight. But the thing is, like everybody knew that black men were attractive. Everybody knew that black men, women were attractive, but they just like weren't attractive enough to be like seen with in
Mhm.
because of they thought they were better than them or whatever. So it was kind of like the side piece that they were trying to hit in the back. I mean, that's why you have all this mixed kids and all the I mean, where did they come from? Why do all black people have white ancestry? Like, I mean, if they didn't see them as attractive, why? Why were they hitting it in the back? Why were they hiding? Why was the president like hiding some woman in his back, in his, whatever? Um, why did Emmett Till get shocked? Like the black men are getting, like they barely would just like be on their own and they'll be accused of like rape because like some white women saw like a
Right.
black man and he looked at her and all of a sudden she's like, oh, rape, rape, like it's just like, come on. But again, they weren't trying to like be the playboy. They weren't trying to be Johnny Cash. It's only like later, like, even the black artists, they weren't even in the mainstream for a very long time. They were always in the back. Like if you read or just like look up history of like music, like black music, the reason black music became popular was because they couldn't help it. It was just too good. Like they had the talent that they couldn't like keep them in the dark anymore.
Right. And also going back, I mean, we've all heard, or not, it's not really rumor anymore. It's like fact. Like fucking Elvis Presley stole music, stole all his moves and all his music
Yeah, from
inspiration from
literature.
black people.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I learned that in my journalism class taught by a white guy, which was hilarious. Like he basically just put him on blast, and played all the music that he got from him, the same songs, the same style, the hair, dress, like it was crazy. And it just goes to show it's not about like, it's not that you're not attractive, it's just that you're not the one who's controlling the narrative, and you're not the majority.
No, and I'm gonna say this right now. Like, white people owe practically almost everything to people of color. Um, they just do. I mean, culturally speaking, also, it's just like so many things that were taken from black people, so many things that were taken from from even brown and Asian people, and yet it's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny
Name,
because white people are on the top.
yeah, like name it. Name all the cool things that you like about America. That it's like, oh, yoga. Like, what did the average person go to eat? Mexican food. What does the average person want to listen to? Pop, like hip hop.
Yeah.
Like it's like all the stuff that makes that people from outside look at America and want to partake in is because of all these other cultures. And most and in Black culture, just the basic stuff for the basics. So it's I mean, I don't know. Like I guess the point my boyfriend's coming from, like when you start to talk about it like this, we're basically preaching to the choir because we both understand, right?
Hmm.
But from another person's point of view, every time we have this conversation, they're like, here we go again. They're like, why can't you just like live and just, let live? They're just like, why are you such a hater? Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So basically they have this it's unfortunate, like I get it, and I am tired of talking about it. So sometimes it's just like ignorance is bliss. It's just easier to just not talk about it, I guess, because it does get exhausting trying to educate people about the obvious that they don't know.
I mean, if you want to talk about obvious, and this is sort of a thing that kind of pisses me off, um, is that when it comes to what's going on right now in the country, with Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate and all these things that are going on, especially when it comes to BLM. All
Mhm.
right, so I'm gonna say this. I've said this several times already to people. I think a lot of people are sort of surprised by how extreme it sounds, but I don't give a fuck. So basically, my thoughts on BLM, Black Lives Matter, is that if you really want all these murders of black people by cops to stop, then fucking stop hiring white people as cops. Like, that's literally it. I mean, if you think about it, it's not a coincidence, right? That all these murders of black people by cops are by white cops, by Caucasian people. If you keep we keep fucking putting guns and badges in the hands of white people and saying, go out there and protect us, when in fact they're not protecting us because they're actually murdering people.
Yeah,
Like, if you want that to stop, then fucking don't let white people become cops. That's
I know.
literally
And
it.
it's not, and what you're saying makes sense. I feel like what you're saying could be easily interpreted as something that's not practical because there's not enough Black people to become cops, or enough, any other ethnicity to replace like white cops, for example. However, in predominant like neighborhoods where there's like Black community, I feel like they deserve to be policed by their own community. I feel like Asian people deserve to be policed by Asian cops. You know what I mean? Um, I feel like people deserve to be policed by the people who represent like who they are. Just like we need government that looks like us, right? So, and I get what you're saying makes total sense if you're saying stop putting white cops who don't care about Black people and Black issues in Black areas where they automatically demonize Black people and don't see them as human, and automatically treat them, in non-human way and shoot them right away, even if they're just a kid. But again, we also have to admit that America has problems, a lot of problems from like structural situations that make it difficult so that people aren't able to create wealth and education and live a good life, that leads there to be more people of color who happen to be in this poor mental and physical and financial situations that end up, at the mercy of, crime or like being policed. And now it sucks that, or when they see someone who's just a normal person, that person automatically just gets tagged as a, through bias as like a person of interest. But yeah, it's kind of late now. This was like a long talk, like way,
Oh no, yeah,
way.
no, all good, all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, yeah, so absolutely, you know what? I'm gonna end this video here. So, but so what? Okay, so I know. All right, so great. Well, yeah. Okay, well, I will end it here then. So, thank you very much for joining us on this interview. I'm going to be posting this interview sometime this week. And yeah, so hopefully, yeah, maybe in the future, we can do like you said. I know you were talking to me before about, you were interested in doing group discussions. There we that is something that I'm going to be starting very soon. So definitely in the future, I definitely like to bring you on a panel. We can have these kinds of discussions, or about race, or dating, or anything like that. It's definitely something
Yeah.
that yeah.
Yeah, and I really like now from what I'm seeing, I feel like you can't talk about dating and relationship without talking about these things that we talked about. Like it's so funny how we just like segued from talking about romantic attraction, and now
Mhm.
we were like in the deep of like American history and problems. That's because they're like inseparable, and I think it makes sense why some people might shy away and not want to um, date like certain people because they don't want to have this discussions.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, these conversations always they can get heated, and a lot of people have, very like, differing opinions, and
Yeah,
yeah, they are kind of very sensitive topics for a lot of people.
yeah,
But on
and
that
it
note, yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, this totally makes sense why date. Like it's easy to date people, and it makes sense why it's easy for like white guys to like date like like an like someone who's like fresh from like Asia, or who doesn't have a lot of like, who's perceived as like neutral.
Mhm.
Um, so I think maybe they think that maybe Asian women might be like more like neutral. So it's easy because they don't, may might never have to talk about these things, except when they start speaking up, then it starts to be like, oh my gosh. But I feel like if they think that they can be silent enough and won't have to deal with these issues, then they're definitely an easier partner to have.
I honestly, yeah, I mean, I have, like I said, we'll do a whole other video on this stuff
Yeah.
separately. I could later, but basically, I could go on a lot about how I feel about the relations between white men and Asian women. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, it's all good. So, like I said, we'll stop recording now. But guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I have been lately posting a lot of videos lately, but that won't always happen. So please always like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell whenever I'm posting something new. But I promise, and that hopefully this will not be the last time that we see of Ola. And yeah, so thank you guys for sharing, and thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.